Good evening, y'all. It's Bales with Southern For Real, and it's Friday night here in Georgia. So as we've shared with you before, Friday night is cook your wife something delicious night. So we're working on getting that started this evening. First thing we're going to do is we're going to open up our bottle of wine, let it breathe for an hour or so before dinner. So what we have tonight is a bottle of Stag's Leap's 12 Falls. It's a nice, full-bodied Cabernet. And I'm not a somm, y'all. I'm just a chubby southern guy that likes to drink wine. And that's not much of an anomaly down here. So, first thing we're going to do is just remove the foil. And next we're going to insert our corkscrew and remove the cork. This happens to be a hinge corkscrew. There's all kinds of corkscrews out there. One of the best I've found is actually called a screw pull. It's one of the easiest and most reliable, but this one's a little more traditional. So the cork came out clean, looks great. And we're gonna pour ourselves a small taste in this tasting glass just to make sure that we're working with a good bottle. You never want to prepare a great meal only to find out you've got a bad bottle of wine sitting in the decanter. Your guests won't be too impressed with that move. So the idea here is just to pour, an ounce of wine to that level in the tasting glass, and then to lay it on a flat surface and actually roll it from side to side. And what that process accomplishes is it aerates the wine, and it causes it to open up, much like it will over a much more extended period of time in the decanter. So once you've completed that process, you just want to give it a taste and make sure everything's good. So that's a really nice, supple red. You get a little bit of cigar box in there. It's going to go great with our beef and Brussels sprouts this evening. So I'm going to go ahead and decant the rest of that bottle, let it start opening up. And what you want to do is pour up against the opposite side of the decanter. As you can see, that causes it to be dispersed across the maximum surface area of the interior of the glass. And that's helping you get that aeration process started. You want to keep your eye out for any sediment that might be trying to escape. As you finish pouring the bottle, this one looks to be pretty clean. We're going to go ahead and pour the rest in. And we're all set. We're just going to set this behind us. We're going to let it do its thing, and we're going to get started with the actual meal prep. All right, so for Cook Your Wife Something Delicious night tonight, we're knocking out a really beautiful Wagyu Hanging Tender. It's a gorgeous piece of meat, very highly marbled. It's going to be extremely tender, but this is a recipe that you could duplicate with many cuts of meat. So this could easily be a skirt steak. It could be grass-fed. It could be, primer choice from your local grocery store. So, as I always like to say, cook with the best raw materials that are available to you and that you can afford, and don't them up. And what that really means is you've got to decide in advance what them up means to you and not do that. In our case, it's cooking them too much. You'll see what I mean later. So this is 24 ounces of Wagyu. So we're actually going to enjoy this over 2 evenings. We're going to enjoy it essentially as a steak tonight. And we're going to enjoy it on surf and turf nachos tomorrow evening. So be sure to keep your eyes out for tomorrow's video as well. So with that in mind, the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to look at the meat and decide how we're going to portion it out for our 2 meals. So because the marbling is so nice up at this top section of the hanging tender, we're going to enjoy that this evening while we're just having it as a steak. And we're going to enjoy this leaner section tomorrow, which is also just slightly smaller with our nachos. So very simple. We're just going to slice this into 2 pieces. You can see how easy that is. that's all there is to that. We're going to go ahead and season them up, and what I like to do is get my meat seasoned and let it sit for about 30 minutes, and that accomplishes a couple things. It assists the seasoning in adhering to the meat itself, and it also allows the seasoning to begin to penetrate the protein and fat fibers of the meat. So that's what we're up to. So the first thing we're going to use is just kosher salt and coarse ground black pepper. This is a 50-50 mix. It's something we like to keep on hand all the time in our kitchen. It's just an efficient way to get things seasoned up for a meal. So we're going to go ahead and apply a fairly liberal amount. This is a relatively thin piece of meat, so we don't want to go too crazy. And we're going to go ahead and do that to both sections that we've created here. That looks great. So the next thing that we're going to add is some Everglades cactus dust. So this lends a really great smoky mesquite flavor to meats, especially meats that you're cooking indoors. We're going to be knocking these out on the cast iron tonight. So we're going to use this cactus dust to give ourselves a little smoky flavor. So we're just going to go on with a fair amount of that. And that looks perfect. So we're going to turn them over and repeat the exact same process on the other side. Then we're going to let these hang out for about 20 to 30 minutes while we prep up the rest of dinner. Alright, so for our vegetable this evening, we're going to be doing pan-seared Brussels sprouts. We're actually going to do that in the same cast iron that we're cooking our hanger steak in tonight. So when the hanging tender comes off to rest, we're going to go immediately into the pan with these. They're going to get cooked up with some of that beef fat that's left in the pan. It's going to give it a great flavor. So we just need to get ready to clean these up and get them ready to cook. So the first step in the process is just removing the base. And that allows us to peel off some of the outside leaves. You only need to remove, one layer here. You're just trying to get down to the heart of the sprout into healthy looking leaves. And because we're going to have sprouts of different sizes, we're going to have to take that into consideration, and we may have to half them or quarter them to create a similar size as possible so they'll all cook at the same rate. So now that we've got this done, we're just going to dissect this guy. And it's fairly large, so we're going to go ahead and cut it into quarters. Just like that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to cut up all of our sprouts just like this. We're going to take them inside. We're going to rinse them off. There's not a lot of point in rinsing off outside leaves when what you're going to be cooking with and eating is inside leaves. So we'll take them in, rinse them off, and get them ready to go straight into the pan. Alright y'all, so we're ready to get the beef on. We've got the cast iron ready to go on the stove. We're using the big ass cast iron tonight because the little ass cast iron isn't going to do you any good when you're cooking a whole hanging tender. The way you want to use your cast iron is it responds best when it's heated up slowly. So we've let this come up to temperature over time, and as you can see, it is just beginning to smoke right in the center, which is exactly what we're looking for. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of avocado oil to the pan. Avocado oil has a very high flash point. What that's going to do is it's going to prevent the butter that we're about to add from burning. So we're going to add that butter in, move it around quickly in the pan. As you can see, it's not browning, and it's the avocado oil that's doing that for us. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go straight in with a piece of beef that we're going to be eating tonight. When you're cooking, you always have to have your end game in mind, and because our end game is to enjoy this tonight and to reheat this piece of beef tomorrow for inclusion in a nacho recipe, we're going to cook this one exactly to the temperature that we want it. And we're going to cook this one a little bit less so that when we put it in the pan and reheat it tomorrow, it still comes out just right. So the way that we like our beef is Warm all the way through, but rare. So that's exactly how we're going to cook this one. And this one is going to be cooked basically to what some might say, you know, I've seen cows hurt worse than that and still live, but that's what we're shooting for tonight. So we're just going to move this in the pan, make sure we're getting a nice even sear. And as you can see, this is like cooking by sight, y'all. You can see exactly how the beef is cooking. And go ahead and give it a quick look. It's looking brown and great. I'm going to go ahead and give it a flip. I'm going to add just a little more heat to the equation since the beef is actually cooling the pan down. And now I'm just going to move this to the side, and I'm going to get this second piece starting. Just like that. Alright, so now what we're doing, we're just rotating our beef as it cooks so it cooks evenly. Obviously the inside of the pan is going to be warmer than the outside of the pan, so we want to make sure that each side is exposed to even heat. Alright y'all, so the beef is looking perfect. That's about as done as we want it. So I'm going to go ahead and take these off, and a trick that I've learned over the years, you saw I just turned this one over right before I pulled it off the heat. This is the hot side. This is the side that's been down in the pan. So I'm going to put that facing up in our aluminum foil, and I'm going to take the hot side from the other piece and face it down into that other piece of meat. And what that's going to do is it's going to cause these two to continue to cook each other while they rest. So we just want to get a nice airtight seal in our foil pack here. We're just going to let that hang out. It's going to continue to cook naturally. And we're going to go ahead and go straight into this pan with our Brussels sprouts. So this pan's already seasoned with some of the fat from the beef, the butter that we added earlier, and the avocado oil. So we're just going to go straight in with these Brussels sprouts. These are going to be seasoned up with Lowry's garlic salt. As well as some Everglades heat. They're going to have a slightly different flavor profile than our beef. It's going to add some interest, you know, to our dish overall. And those look just a little dry to me, so I'm going to add just a touch more avocado oil. And then we're going to start giving all that a good mix. One thing that's great about cast iron, if you're not familiar with working with it, is that you can use any utensil you want. I can't hurt this cast iron pan with this metal spoon, so you don't have to worry like you do with other non-stick options. So our objective now is to let our meat rest for exactly 10 minutes and to cook these Brussels sprouts in that period of time. Alright y'all, so we're knocking out a quick pan sear on these Brussels sprouts. We've got the heat running just right now. In my experience, when your Brussels sprouts are jumping around a little bit, they're cooking at the absolute perfect temperature. We like a little char on the outside of our Brussels sprouts. It gives them a great Maillard, crust and flavor. And as you can see, these are just starting to move around on us, so they're just right. Alright y'all, so the Brussels sprouts are caramelized just like we like them, as you can see. So we're not going to take them totally off the heat. What we're going to do is turn the heat down to low, and we're just going to move them to the outside of the pan. That's going to keep them warm for just a minute or two more while our beef rests, and then everything's going to be good to go all at once. Alright y'all, as you can see, we've got our plates assembled, we've got our wine poured, we're ready to go. So you've been with us through the whole process. We started by seasoning our hanger steak and letting it rest. We prepared our Brussels sprouts. We cooked everything in our cast iron skillet tonight, so it's a one-pan meal. We've had our wine decanted, and we are ready for a taste. That is so tender. You could probably cut that with a spoon. Really moist. Great mesquite flavor from the cactus dust. That is outstanding. Let's see how our 12 Falls is doing with it. Oh yeah. That doesn't make your wife happy on Cook Your Wife Something Delicious Night. You've got bigger problems, my friend. And remember, happy wife, you got a chance. Remember to like and subscribe. We'll see you all next time.